Okay, so just a general introduction for everyone that'll be watching this. We learned in class during the course about a bunch of different attitudes, gishot for nihul, from bureaucratic up until agile, things that were popular in the past and now, and like I mentioned, maybe different industries could lead to different type of styles of management. And the goal today would be hearing about your specific business, your specific industry, understanding just how you basically took, even intentionally or unintentionally, maybe intuitively, took these concepts that we learned and then put it into practicality. So, and it'll just be a mere 10 questions. So first, if you could just give like a general overview of the industry, the business as a whole.
Okay. Well, first of all, we are in the classic diamond business, a very old school, old trade type of industry. Employees within an office framework have to be vetted very well in order to bring them into the environment. Knowing people's background, not just their present capabilities, but knowing people's background is a requirement, because shrinkage could be a serious issue. Marrying that together with finding the right personalities for different kinds of tasks, particularly sales, requires knowing the individual, not just through an interview generally, but also knowing someone for a longer period of time. That's easy to do within the framework of a smaller company. But with a larger company where you employ at times hundreds of people, that becomes a challenge.
For sure.
And so vetting a person, sitting and knowing that person extremely well, both from an integrity point of view and a professional point of view, and judging the kind of instincts that they have. I don't know what name you put on that category, but that's the criteria.
For sure. And then let's say once you do have these people, and let's say you are this organization now at times, like you said, maybe hundreds of people. You mentioned sales. I'm sure that there are different departments that it's split up into. Mm-hmm. So how did that look? Was it that there were clear departments that kind of didn't overlap? For example, I don't know, sales and manufacturing, two completely different departments that then had a hierarchy structure within, mm-hmm. or was it more intertwined?
No, I don't. I think that there were different departments, as you would have in any business. Sales was sales, and manufacturing was manufacturing, and there were different parts that we would manufacture. As we were a classic diamond company, but we manufactured jewelry to put the diamonds in and sold them to mass merchants. And so they only bought a finished piece of jewelry, so we had different things that we were manufacturing. There's sales, there's also acquisition. Acquisition could mean from rough diamonds that needed to be polished, and so there was a long process of manufacturing. Acquisition could mean not buying rough diamonds and polishing them, but buying finished diamonds from other manufacturers and integrating that into our stock. And then there were other tasks, as I said, manufacturing jewelry, financial department, processing department, etc., all the normal nuts and bolts.
And in each department, was there a clear hierarchy structure of, let's say, maybe the people at entry level, and then a manager managing them, and then maybe a department head?
I think that we were very much a flat structure. I don't think that, I guess by the amount of years that you were there, you earned your respect. Mm-hmm. Because there was no place to keep someone and no need to keep someone who wasn't pulling his weight. However, we didn't have a system of directors and vice presidents and presidents. Everybody was kind of on the same level. Everyone had their tier, and everyone had to pull his weight wherever he was sitting.
And then let's say someone had an opinion on a different department and how that's being done. Let's say this guy earned his seat at the table. Was it very freely and openly speak that?
Very much so. We had regular meetings. I think that sales drove the business. Mm-hmm. And everything else fulfilled what sales brought in. There were regular open sales meetings we were a multinational company with our principal sales offices in America, at the time Israel, and also Hong Kong. We generally had everybody around the table on a weekly basis, or maybe on a bi-weekly basis, and the purpose was for everyone to understand that it was an open atmosphere, and the junior people could see how could learn and see how the senior people reacted to sharing information, and then they would feel comfortable with that. They would feel comfortable in the input that the senior people were accustomed to giving about other departments that they interacted with, and so that they would eventually feel the new person would feel comfortable based on what he saw his neighbor is more a neighbor with more vetek, right, than he had, and so it was more of a copycat learning. It's not an industry that's there's no school, there's no course, there's no lesson. So we worked generally we worked in large open rooms. And the purpose of large open rooms was so that everybody could learn from everybody else. You could learn, if the salesmen were kind of sitting in the same environment within earshot of each other, they could pick up good tricks, chaps, of what someone else was doing and how he negotiated, or how he presented himself, or how he everything from making that very first call to finalizing a sale down the road, how he developed a customer and how he learned how to speak. And we have, salespeople that have been with us for decades and decades. And so some of them are quite good at what they do, like I said, from building relationships, slowly but surely, which a young person can't go to school for.
Right.
And so the ability to get that by having him sitting next to you is invaluable. And so therefore we built a very big open space so that everyone could hear and participate.
I hope my bosses aren't watching this. I also work at a high-tech startup, and for us, now that I think about it, we have our pre-sales, and then proper sales, and then customer success in one office, but in complete different rooms within a floor of like an open space. Not even an open space, like a rooms.
Right.
And the developers are in a Tel Aviv office, and we're based in Ra'anana. So I see a lot to be gained by having everyone together and everyone hearing each other. It could be maybe customer success hears from the customers, maybe that.
In addition to that, within the same room, there's actually trading. People would come in and show merchandise, and someone would be right nearby them and within the framework of the open room. And so they would listen to the give and take, and which actually gave them a market opinion, without actually doing the purchasing themselves. And so being in a trading atmosphere, trading means buying and selling all within earshot of each other. Then, as I said earlier, it might be repetitive, but how does one bring in a new person into an industry for which there's no school book?
Right.
And the only way they could do it is by seeing how someone else is dealing with it. And once you do that, if there's enough trust that one person won't be stealing, in quotes, any thought that would be damaging to the speaker, which is not really likely. But with that aside, it's an excellent way to teach people an industry that's not easy to do.
For sure. Next, also kind of intertwines with this, but I would actually assume based on what you said now, but it would be interesting to hear what you think about this. Today, there are a lot of tools and systems to track performance. So it could be, let's say, certain CRMs that people are using a system, and maybe it's tracking how much they are actually working on their computer. Maybe it's tracking just the numbers of how many sales they're making, etc. Especially, let's say, in the diamond industry, where I'm sure, like you said, it was very sales driven. Was there any system to maybe detect the production of each employee?
Yeah, of course. I mean, KPIs are what it's all about.
Right.
Measure what matters. All the classic books.
Right.
Been there, done that. We measure everything, all the different intricacies of different products within products, and they're also very relevant to how everyone is compensated. That said, I think the most effective compensation that we were able to offer was a bonus type system that was based on profitability. And management would determine what share we would say that X% of the profitability was allocated to the sales department. And we would say that this person is entitled to X% of that share, and another or we determined it based on the proportion of sales that he generated. But then there were tiers of profitability. If we had a flat year, it didn't matter how much you sold, but a flat year meaning in profitability, not in revenue. But if we had profitability, we determined how to share that. And it was a lot. It wasn't hard and fast. It was absolutely the method of measurement, but it wasn't a hard and fast measurement because we're in the diamond business again, and we're not dealing in a material that has a steady cost price.
Right.
We can be buying something at a high market price and be stuck in selling a jewelry chain program, so to speak, where we guarantee through any one season to maintain our price. And so, but how we maneuver through that was very much dependent on how good the salesperson was. And so taking the overall, and also was very important, again, it goes back to the one room system. It was very important for the key salespeople to care about the overall company, not just their sales.
Because then theoretically maybe it wouldn't be profitable as a whole, and there wouldn't be money to be shared.
So the way we get everybody to contribute is that we gave them a piece of the overall. No one got a piece of what he did, but he got a piece of the overall. And because he got a piece of the overall, not only did he care about the company coming in the door, but he cared about how the company did on December 31st, when it really mattered. Because and he cared about his neighbor did, and so he didn't hesitate within this framework of a big room. He didn't hesitate to teach, that guy that's only been there for 2 or 3 years, and pull him along.
And this was yearly or quarterly or?
It was yearly.
Yeah.
It was a yearly bonus, and we left the bonus in a bonus pool, so that if the company continued to do well, he got based on how the company's income improved through the years.
And this was the not rev share, but more, I guess, profitability share. Was that strictly for the sales department?
Only for the sales. Primarily, I would say there may have been a couple of exceptions, and it would be logical that there might be other people involved, but it was more specifically designed for sales. And so, because sales, there are many costs. A lot of our guys travel, guys and girls. A lot of our people travel. And so there are costs to that. And so everyone had to be cost conscious and yet not lazy at the same point. If he thought that he could make a sale, he had to get on a plane and go and do it, or he had to do whatever it took. And so, but everyone became a partner. The senior people became partners, so to speak. And we found that to be a very effective motivation.
So I'm actually jumping towards more of the more modern things, but it seems that a lot of people basically had a lot of freedom to take their own initiatives. If they thought that this could get the sale done, then somewhat of a free arm. They say either way, you're only going to get the bonus out of it if it's worth it for the company at the end of the day, if it's profitable.
Right.
So was there a lot of encouragement towards? It seems like there was, but encouragement towards, let's say, take your own initiative.
Totally.
And then, if there was, then how was that, let's say, measured at any point? Meaning, was there a point where you could say...
No, it was measured through this system, but... Which
type of system is this?
This sharing of profit.
Oh, you were saying it would being at the bottom line. But let's say if I could say, okay, let's say Gavriel said, I really think that if I right now fly to this conference where I know that X and Y potential clients are going to be at,
right,
that I should go there. And maybe that was a big bet that I took, and I did it because I truly thought it was good for the business,
Right.
and maybe it failed, would that be able to be seen? Because, okay, the bottom line, maybe you say, okay, we ended up not being profitable this year. How would they be able to detect that maybe Gavriel's initiative that failed was a problem? Maybe they don't mind, it's totally fine. It was a legitimate bet.
Well,
that he
one
took.
initiative wouldn't be a problem. If one has to take initiatives like that in order to succeed.
Right.
One has to figure out where he's going to meet his client faster than his competition would.
Right.
And more frequently and on a more regular basis. And so just because one person failed at one point, for him to be successful, he would have to make it up at other opportunities.
Right.
So I don't. To the contrary, in every business, you're always learning. You can't pin your success or failure on one occurrence, and so hopefully that person would endure and would keep on pushing.
Right. Yeah, and he had the whole year to make it up.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna check to make sure it's still filming. We're at the half point, so I just want to make sure it's still filming. Okay, we're good. So the next topic is that today there are a lot of new inventions all the time. We see how fast in tech, AI, everything is changing like this. In the diamond industry, obviously, there's also a lot of a latest trend is lab-grown diamonds, but I'm sure that it's only just the latest trends, and you probably went through hundreds of trends over all of the years. Have there ever been any specific examples, let's say, beside going back, let's say 10, 15 years, any products that you said, oh, I need to adopt? It could maybe be in the polishing, it could be in the style that you needed to adopt in order to stay ahead and not fall behind. And how did that process look like? I'll combine it with the next question. I guess starting from determining, wait, there might be a trend that, how do I determine that, oh, everyone seems to be liking this type of diamond, maybe I need to add that into my cell, to then saying, how do we implement this? And then how do we measure that we implemented it properly?
Yeah, most definitely. Actually, it's a very, very good question. Diamonds are a very unbelievably generic product. One round diamond is like another round diamond. Some are cut a little bit better, and they are a little bit more brilliant. Some are cut a little bit to save weight, because the cost of losing weight is very expensive, and so they wouldn't have as much brilliance. But for all intents and purposes, particularly in mall stores across America, a diamond's a diamond. And so how does a retailer differentiate himself from his competition? And so recognizing this, actually, I felt a downward cycle, a downward push driving down profitability, because every couple of years there would be a big company that was craving to grow and wanting more business, and therefore would be overly competitive in pricing in order to win programs for what are just generic product. And so what we did is we created a brand, not only in name but in product. We created a diamond that had a cut that produced more brilliance than a regular diamond. And in doing so, it gave the salespeople, and we sold this to the largest chain in America, it gave the salespeople the ability to talk about the specialness of their diamond versus what the person would see walking up into the various jewelry stores up and down the aisles, and they would have an edge over what anyone did. So in addition to that, talking about mixing that with technology, not only could the consumer see the difference in the brilliance of a generic diamond to our diamond, but we also had a computerized measuring system that measured how much brilliance actually came out of any particular diamond. And we set certain standards that our diamond had to exceed in order to be truly better. And the consumer then, and it was done by a third-party laboratory, it wasn't done by us. And the consumer then had confidence that when we told him that the brilliance on this stone was, I don't know, good, bad, or excellent, that he would actually see the difference himself, and he had confirmation on the various different gradings of brilliance, which nobody else had done. And it was a breakthrough in the industry, and has been going for 24, 25 years now, and has sold, without giving numbers, an enormous amount of people.
It sounds like everyone else kind of tried to get an edge just by pricing,
Right.
just by cutting prices, and that's something they were easily able to detect because I guess people were some of your clients saying, hey, we're getting these, very, very competitive offers from a bunch of different, and that's when you decided to make the decision to go for the.
What was particularly attractive, you're exactly right. Everybody was beating each other up in price in order to gain more business. But what it did for us is diamonds are distributed by generally the world. There's one very large distribution company called De Beers Mining Distribution Company, and it allowed you to know on a steady basis over a long period of years how much you would be using. So it made you a more attractive customer. And since you were a more attractive customer, you were able to buy more merchandise at a more competitive price, and so that you actually could win on both ends. And you could win on the end of the consumer; they would be more attracted to you, and you'd win on the end of your supplier because because you were a fixed part of their sales, they could rely on you. And so that created a double-edged sword, which made you a much stronger business.
Beating out the competition just with sheer product, ultimately that's the best way to stand out. Not by saying that we have the cheapest product, or the opposite, saying that we have something that no one else has.
There's always somebody new that has something cheaper.
Right, exactly.
And then in a later generation, we took it to the next level. We created a brand, so we didn't limit it to only one product. We came up with a technology, which is a kind of laser etching, which captured light, and a traditional diamond exhibits its brilliance in black and white flash, we call it. Take it. You're recently married, so you know that diamond.
Yeah.
It twinkles. But the twinkling, the twinkling is good because it's a black versus the white. And what we did is we came up with this laser etching which caught light and it broke it up into different colors. And so the reflection that you saw, the brilliance that you saw, didn't manifest itself in these black and white flashes, but it manifested itself in the colors of the rainbow.
Wow.
So it was it is very pretty. It gave the customer choice. Obviously it was proprietary, and is also equally very successful. So at the same time, it helped us build out the brand so the salesperson could walk the consumer over to the counter and start to give them a choice of things within a brand. So do you want the Nike jumps, or you want the Nike, running shoes, or you want whatever it is that you would want in that category? He could sell from one counter. So we became an attractive place for the salesperson to go to.
Truly, like you said, diamonds theoretically, or maybe traditionally, are very generic. It's a very generic product, and that turned it into already now there are tiers, and now there are different styles. There's really an opportunity for, like you said, the salesperson to kind of maybe edge
and the consumer felt more confident,
right?
Because he knew that there was indigenously something special about this product that nobody else had.
So we spoke a lot now about, let's say, towards the consumer, but let's say inner company now. When we're talking about employees' wellness today, everything's about how can all the trends. I work in recruiting tech, so we always talk about what are the trends and how to get someone to entertain a specific job offering that they would leave their current job for. And all of the surveys show that it's about employee wellness. It's about, let's say, career path to make sure that everybody get promoted. It's maybe paid time off. Now the trend is obviously maybe working hybrid, working remote. So besides for, let's say, monetary compensation, was there any specific way that even just within the monetary, you clearly had a way where you got to keep them motivated by giving them a piece of the pie at the end. But besides for that, was there any way that you stood out to your potential employee, to your current employees, or people that wanted to come work to you to say, this is why I want to work for them, or special perks?
Well, I go back to the very beginning and remember that the diamond companies or jewelry companies are closely held family businesses. Generally not very big, and but young people have aspirations, and they want to work for a company that's growing and successful and work in a very nice atmosphere. And we did our best to have everyone, although it was a closely held family business, to work in a professional atmosphere, yet a family type atmosphere, where people had relationships. And we encouraged all kinds of different functions within the company that kept everybody together in a somewhat of a social atmosphere. In New York, we built a fabulous office, which made everybody feel that they were not only creating special product, but were part of a special team. We have a lovely office that overlooks the skyline in Manhattan on the 21st floor, and it's much different than the typical dark people that are in our category in the industry. And so people really enjoyed coming to work, and they said, well, if this is what the owners of the company or the people who run the company like to work in, and this is what they think motivates them, then it's really a nice motivation for us, better than walking into a dingy old dirty office. And it fit the product. After all, we sell an expensive high-end product. Even though it's mid-level America, it's not at the high end, it's not a Tiffany or a Cartier, but it's a mid-level America, but nevertheless, it's still a luxury item. And so creating the atmosphere is our wellness.
Right.
It's our, everyone had the standard positive health insurance and all the different various benefits. However, working in an atmosphere, we're in an open room, and everybody's exchanging ideas by definition, because there's no wall that separates it. And don't forget, when you're walking towards the kitchen, you pass by everybody else, and they're also in an open space, so you overhear everything going on. And then if it's in a lovely facility, then the creativity and the creative juices really, really explode. And over the years, it really paid off. It's a way of thinking.
Sounds pretty good. Maybe I'll send in my CV. There's a certain also theory. Now this is very specified, but it's called the theory of constraints, where basically, I would say this maybe touches more of, let's say, the manufacturing part. But that's basically saying that there's always one thing that's what they call in Hebrew tzval bakbuk. That's like stopping that's what's causing maybe a specific constraint of why it's not at the optimal rate of, let's say, production or something like that, or maybe it could be in sales. Was there, again, it's very specified in the finish that it wasn't, but was there any way that you had that you maybe checked what can maybe be stopping our production from being 2x or 3x? Was there a way of thinking like that in general, or was there any maybe specific realization that you had over the years of, I see that this is really, holding us back, maybe we should completely change our gisha on why so that we can
I think that the one thing, I'm not sure that this will answer your question, but I think that the one bottleneck or the one thing that's super unpredictable is that because we're dealing basically in a commodity, and we're selling it into a consumer product. After all, earrings or an engagement ring or a piece of jewelry is a consumer product. We're dependent on many different economic factors and political factors that impact the business and create peaks and valleys in pricing that are out of our control. And to go back to the COVID period, I spoke before about being an advantageous buyer from the mining companies when we buy. But how advantageous can you be when COVID comes around and nobody's getting married and nobody's getting engaged and you can't sell any diamonds to any retailer, everything's stopped dead, but you have this kind of, not moral obligation, but you have a business obligation to be a consistent purchaser. So what do? And the retailers on the other hand stop buying, so prices don't decline, they collapse. They don't go down by 2 or 3%, they go down by 10 or 15%. And these peaks and valleys come about to an extreme over periods of time. You know, over 10 or 15 years, you'll have 2 or 3 of them. And they impact profitability. After all, that's what we work for. They impact profitability to an exaggerated way. And so it makes climbing back always very difficult. And so you have to, you know, what can you do to prepare yourself for it? Right. That's the $64,000 question. And you can't, in a way you can't, because you have to be a prophet. You know, COVID came upon us at the end of March. When was it?
2020.
2020, or what was it, March? Yeah, beginning of 2020, right? And it came upon us 1, 2, 3. I remember coming back on a business trip on a Thursday or Friday, and we had to make a minion in our house of all the people that traveled, because they were in like a semi-quarantine.
To China or anywhere?
No, anywhere.
Right.
Didn't matter. Everyone that was on a plane. Anyone that was on a plane, right?
Wow.
And so there was, you know, if your business is booming and expanding, or growing and expanding, then you're in that mode. You can't see COVID coming, but you have all kinds of expenses, overhead, obligations to purchase, etc. That all, and it drives down prices by, like I said, not 2%, but 20% or 25%. And we hold very big inventory, so that's an automatic huge loss, etc., etc. And then the big surge in demand immediately after COVID, when people had gotten all kinds of money, benefits for sitting at home, and all of a sudden they had money in their pocket and wanted to buy something for their loved one, and so we were the star product. But you know, prices zoomed up. So you know, those are our challenges.
Right.
That's what you know, being prepared for change.
Yeah, like you said, you can never predict anything like that, and you can't properly prepare because you don't know exactly what's coming, what type of event. But I guess being able to at least contain it so that you can get through the storm, and then typically after that comes a peak.
Right.
I guess is
easier said than done.
Oh my God, for sure.
You know, high interest rates. What high interest rates do, you know.
All right. Just gonna check one more time to make sure that we're still good. Still good. Okay. The last question I had here was that obviously all the process from in diamonds, where it's, you know, from the mining all the way to design implementation, I'm sure it's extremely meticulous, and with each stage very critical for your bottom line. In your specific business, do you feel like you had more of, I'll ask it how I asked it, and then I'm going to kind of change it based off of what you said. Maybe a very big, we need to extremely invest extravagantly in both R&D, maybe in your advertising, maybe in your, to stick out? Or do you think it was more like conservative, looking to spend, to lessen spend, to stay a little bit lean wherever possible, to keep the business at more of a stable state? Now, based off of what you said, it seemed like at the end of the day, you differentiated yourself by the product itself. So you were able to stay stable, say we don't need to show ourselves as all this because our product is actually different than everyone else's. Mm-hmm. So people that want...
Yeah, so we lived in a constant state of R&D.
Right.
Because we became known to be the innovative company in the industry. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing that, then you always have to have something on your desk that's new. And you know, not only a small proportion of those ideas come to fruition. So you can't count on that. But R&D, advertising on the other hand, is a challenge because we're in a very low margin industry. As much as people think that diamonds are very high margin, they're actually very low. It's a very, very competitive industry, and margins are very low. So the ability, we made this brand, or we make special products because we want to get a little bit extra for our product. But then if we spend all that money on advertising, we haven't really come out ahead. We may as well just be back where we started. And so it's very hard for us. We had to think of creative ways together with the retailers that we sold to, in order to be able to market and advertise our products, you know, in enough of a way to raise consumer awareness. We never do that enough. We never do it enough, and we're always trying to think of ways to be creative, not about the product, not only about the product, but also about how we let the consumer know about it. And that's a big challenge. The internet sounds
Leora was
easy.
telling me before that creativity is your niche.
Yeah, but not in marketing, you know. The creativity is kind of easier because we're trained about product from the beginning. We're nursed on understanding what the product is all about. So when you have that innate ability, which not everybody is, and so when you have that ability, so you can work with the product and make it better. But the internet, you know, what's the most efficient way for me to get the consumer to hear about me on the internet?
Yeah.
It's not my area of expertise, and I think is very expensive to do successfully.
Right.
To get influencers or to do to hire other people that would help get you to another level is a challenge.
It seemed like with what you mentioned about your competitors, I mean, I don't know about, let's say specifically today, but a lot of their way to market was just to price very competitively. That was their way to kind of stick out in their way. Do you see anyone really taking that, adopting, you know, high spend marketing, in your face type of influencers all over the place?
Well, our version of that would be online sales. In other words, the traditional method of retailing through brick and mortar retail stores obviously went out the window for everything, I don't know, 15 years ago.
With Amazon, yeah.
Right. With Amazon and everything, everybody.
Yeah.
There are many products now that have their own websites.
Right.
And sell those products. And the same thing happens in our industry. You can now buy an engagement ring from a company that only sells engagement rings online. And they don't have a brick and mortar presence. Mm-hmm. And they can be very competitive because they don't pay rent anywhere.
But wouldn't the consumer be very skeptical about it? Like, it's not like they're buying...
Yes and no, but the price convinces.
Right.
You don't need everybody. You only need a small proportion. But you have companies that do very sizable revenues now that are online. And they do it because also the customer has been eased into it with other products. Like Amazon is a perfect example that you raised. Where did Amazon start?
Books.
Right. Now, books, it's, you know, what's the most you could lose? $10 or $15 on a book, right? So they eased the world into online purchasing with a safe product. And now I'm looking for golf clubs online. And everything else, you know, there's nothing that you're really shy about.
Right.
Now, diamonds, yeah, there's certainly a greater level of confidence to be able to do that than there was before Amazon started, but it's not as confident building as sitting across the counter from someone.
Right.
But you know what? If you're going to save 15% or 20%. Maybe it's worth the swing. And everybody gives a money-back guarantee. So there are other advantages of doing an online business, not being physically together with the consumer. And so there are pluses and minuses. And there's a place for everybody. There's a mindset, not everybody likes to go shopping.
Right.
You know, there are people that go shopping online and are much more comfortable, and they know how to check themselves, and they know how to read recommendations and reviews. And if a company is diligent, if a company that's selling a product is diligent, and they build their reviews properly and reliably, then people get to know it. The word of mouth is not inconsequential.
Sure.
And so there's a room for everybody's likes and tastes.
Very interesting. And to sum it up, I mean, I'm done with the questions. Sum it up, it seems like really, I mean, coming from like a traditional industry, like you said, very like a classical industry, it has its maybe straightforward, but it seems like you guys were really the innovative one in all of your operations, it seemed like, from the beginning to the end with how you guys stuck out. So it's very interesting because I think that what people are now getting from this interview, for example, is not necessarily just hearing how, let's say, a classic diamond company would hold itself, but also how maybe a more innovative one within, which I think is what everyone's experiencing now. I mean, there's a theory about agile, right? There's a theory that you need to be always adapting, but there's I don't think there's any industry right now that can allow itself to stay put and say, we're in. So it's very interesting to hear about a traditional industry where a company within it and how it holds itself to make sure to stand out and stay at the top, even with all these competitors trying to come from these different angles. So
yeah, the world is moving very, very fast these
Yeah,
days.
too fast.
And so you have to be able to see around the corner.
Exactly, for sure. Thank you very much. I'm sure everyone's really going to enjoy. It was a pleasure.
Okay, great. My pleasure.